Bizarre Brain Comics. Dun 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 dun. Hello, Gary here for Bizarre Brain Comics. This is where I'd like to take a look at some older comics. Take a look at the characters and creators, and then examine the stories and the art. And this time, what I want to take a look at is this little comic book right here. This is Plastic Man, Volume 4, Number 11, 1976, from DC Comics. Plastic Man. He's something else, ain't he? And he's still around. Been around for a long time. Okay. Let's see what the big book of knowledge has to say, shall we? Okay. Plastic Man, Volume 4, Number 11, 1976, DC Comics. It is The Hamsters of Doom, written by Steve Skeets and drawn by Ramona Fradon. Okay, Plastic Man first appeared in Police Comics number 1 in 1941 from Quality Comics, which was later acquired by DC Comics. And Plastic Man was created by cartoonist Jack Cole. And he incorporated humor into the action storytelling, and is one of the first superheroes to do so. The humor vein has always carried through, even after he was integrated into the main DC universe and joined the Justice League. He is just a goofy character. Originally, he was the criminal Eel O'Brien, who while committing a crime in the Crawford Chemical Works, he was shot by a guard and fell into a vat of chemicals. I hate it when that happens. And it seems to be common. Jeez, that's what happened to the Joker, too. He still managed to escape in spite of falling into the vat of chemicals. And because of the chemicals, he acquired plastic powers from the acid and captured his own gang members who had abandoned him. And then he turned to good to make up for his bad guy days. Yeah, he was a bad guy. He was just a petty criminal. And the writer was Steve Skeets. He was born in 1943. An American comic writer, best known for his work on Thunder Agents, Aquaman, and Plop. He has also used various pseudonyms. He moved to New York City in 1965 to become an assistant editor for Stan Lee, but was soon booted out to be replaced by Roy Thomas. Skeets was then assigned to write westerns. He then also picked up work at Tower Comics, where he worked on Thunder Agents, Charlton Comics, and DC, Gold Key, and Archie, as well as Warren magazines. And his work has been illustrated by a host of the top artists of the 60s and 70s and beyond. So that's all I've got on that. I'm not going to talk too much about Ramona Fradon, particularly because I've talked about her before. I gave you an overview of her when I did that Plop episode. More of you need to watch Plop. And and also discussed her when I did the program on the Super Friends. So let us delve into the wacky and zany world of crime capturing with Plastic Man. There's Plastic Man. Here's that cover illustration for by Ramona Fradon, and this is a rather generic kind of cover because it has nothing to do with the interior story other than Plastic Man stretching all over and taking out a bunch of bad guys. These are all costumes. They don't have any costumes inside. You can see this is a real rough copy. I think that it's even the cover is, I think, completely loosened from the body of the book. But you can see Ramona Fradon's. She had a nice clean cartoon style, and her style is definitely cartoonish. And she did a lot of work. She's one of the few female artists in comic books from the Silver and Bronze ages. Fortunately, there are a lot more today, but I am not that familiar with them. As I said, he was created by Jack Cole. Now, I wanted to show you that something right here. This book, real rough shape, and this is The Great Comic Book Heroes. And I've referenced this before. This book is from, it's in Roman numerals, and I can't read it. I want to say 1965 or so. Could be. And herein, it's the text is written by Jules Pfeiffer, which is just a framing. But here, you see, within the pages here, the very first story, reprinting the very first story of Plastic Man by Jack Cole. And even right off the bat, it looks a little bit on the silly side. Now, of course, over the years, you see, and to a lot of non-comic book people, Plastic Man is confusing. Quite often, Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic himself, from the Fantastic Four, is called Plastic or Rubber Man. And even DC's own Elongated Man, he's also often confused with Plastic Man, and vice versa, because it's certain similarity in their powers. And in his solo stories, Elongated Man was often a little bit on the goofy side, but not as goofy as Plastic Man. Of course, he was Eel O'Brien, and this gives you a quick, brief look at his origin story. Here he is with his gangsters in the chemical plant. There he's shot right off the bat, shot by the guards. Everyone takes off. Oh, he's abandoned. He's abandoned by his boys. And he was doused. He actually didn't fall into a vat. He was just, I guess he was just, yeah, there he is. He's just doused by these chemicals, which got into the bloodstream from when he was shot. And he's staggering around. Finds a monastery where they return him to health, and then he discovers, this is the funny stuff, how he discovers his powers. Oh my gosh. And he's ticked off, and he goes back to his gangster buddies. and he thinks they think he's going to help him. But in the meanwhile, he turns into Plastic Man. There you can see some of the goofy stuff here. He's just like a mat on the floor, and also his elasticity allows him to be virtually bulletproof, because his elastic body just the bullets bounce off him. Boing, boing. But here he is catching his guys using all his goofy plastic powers. And then he takes off in the end and says, "Now to return the money. I never knew fighting for law could be so much fun." Yeah, so, and the next one is the spirit. We'll cover the spirit another time. But yeah, that's and that was just a brief recap of the origin of Plastic Man. He's had his own title several times. Of course, he was in Police Comics. I think he had his own title in the 40s too. I'm not positive on that. And I think in the 50s, DC acquired the quality character. So in addition to Plastic Man, they got Black Hawk, and I'm not off the top of my head, I'm not sure who else. And then he's had his own title a few times with DC. And shortly after this, and because this is from '76, I think or a year or so later, he had an animated series. And of course, it was goofy, so it was more juvenile. And the same thing when they had another series in the 80s, or that might have been just reruns and repackaging of the same show. I don't know, because I didn't watch it, but I've only seen a few of those episodes. But as I understand, it seemed to be pretty close to this, because at this time he wasn't just running around loose. He was an agent. Also, remember, at this time, Plastic Man was not on Earth 1. I forget what they called his particular Earth, but it was not Earth 1. And he was working for the NBI, National Bureau of Investigation. So he was an NBI agent, and that plays in. He has a sidekick called Woozy Winks, and he's comic relief, as if Plastic Man needs comic relief. And here it shows, okay, some kind of robbery's going down, and all these people, and they're recognizing these are famous people. Some of them well-known famous people. And like this one guy is a writer, Neil Dennis, and Edward Maxwell. I don't know him, no. And I'll get the other one, Von. We'll talk about him later. So he's catching these guys, and they're just acting weird. Like here, this guy's twirling Woozy, and they're just biting and trying to gnaw on Plastic Man, and while he's trying to stop them, but they're just kind of overpowering them a little bit. There's just too many of them. And the one guy, he's a famed architect Frank Lloyd Van Skeet. Now there's a little pun in some of these names. Okay, and he's just balancing the ball on his nose. But the guys are still getting away, and there's this portal in the sky. Climb up this ladder, and they're gone. And they're gone before Plastic Man can, because Woozy Winks is a stumble bum. And he accidentally stumbles over Plas while they're both trying to get him. So now they're just dumbfounded. And they're heartsick. Now, and the phone rings, and it's their phone is hanging on a tree, and it's for Plaz. Plaz, it's his nickname for Plaz. And now I wanted to mention here, this guy, Frank Lloyd Van Skeet. Of course, it's supposed to be Frank Lloyd Wright, the architect, but he's Van Skeet. A play on the name of Steve Skeets, who is the writer of this story. And then they mentioned a writer on Neil Dennis as a play on the name of Denny O'Neil, who was also a writer, wrote some novels using the pen name Neil yeah, Neil Dennis. So there you go. Come on, come on. So Plaza's taking the phone while Woozy's trying to be a nuisance. He get kind of wants him to. Boss wants him back in the office, and Plaz is not happy with Woozy. So Woozy's wandering around talking to himself, griping, and something about yeah. And what about actor Rip Torn, Edwin Maxwell. These are all famous people, and he wants to. And that atomic physicist Professor von Holocaust. And someone says, Professor von Holocaust? I know where he is. Oh, what the heck? This voice, but we have to come back to that later. Here's Plaz at the office, and there's the boss's secretary. She's obviously an airhead, and he comments to himself how she's has the same kind of blank expression that all these other people had, these criminals just had, except on her, she has it all the time, and it's natural. Then there's as he's waiting to get in to see the boss, this other agent comes out, because he's got the NBI agent of, what's his name? Oh, come on, I just saw it. Foyle, that's his name. Foyle, because he is his foil, and his name is Agent Foyle, and he's a top agent. He's going out and he's going to work on this case. Meanwhile, Plaz is getting chewed out by this guy who happens to look a lot like J. Edgar Hoover, and he bounces out because there's another robbery going on, and he goes to counter that. While Plaz is involved in that, someone is watching it on closed circuit TV. Who could that be? Then we have Shazam advertisement for cupcakes, and this looks like it was drawn by Kurt Swan. And here we see this guy, who he is the villain. Yeah. While Plaza's still trying to catch him, and he manages to make it through the wormhole there, and then woo, he's just spun around, and he doesn't know what the heck's going on, and he's dazed. Then he's in a cage, a giant hamster cage. One of the guys running on a hamster wheel, and they're eating bird seed and the like. But being Plaz, he can get out of the cage, and he sees this house over here. Let's go check that out. Meanwhile, the little girl that Woozy had been talking to, who said, I know about von Holocaust, she takes him to her little dollhouse in the backyard, a little 2-story playhouse. And here comes this little hamster, a talking hamster, says, I'm von Holocaust, and I can take you I can explain what's been going on. Meanwhile, Plaz needs to get into this house, and he just turns his finger into a key so he can get in. But then he says, I don't need a key, and he just kind of smushes himself right through the keyhole. And inside there's Agent Foyle in a hamster wheel attached to a generator. And then there's these other hamsters. These hamsters, talking hamsters, in this cage, talking to Plaz. Well, what the heck's going on? So where are the people who has been that this evil, what they call him, Professor or Dr. Forklift, is been swapping people's minds with hamsters, and the hamsters are well trained and they do what the guy says. Meanwhile, back with Woozy, the von Holocaust hamster tells him the story that he had basically the same story, and he managed to get away. This little girl found him, and then she went out looking for somebody to help, and happened upon Woozy Wink. So now they're going to the house, to the hideout, and the little girl and the hamster's going along too. Meanwhile, Plaz is just going farther into the evil headquarters, and makes himself flat as a sheet of paper so he can slip under the door, a locked door. And there's Dr. Forklift. He's really a forklift, yeah. And he's right there, and he says, "Aha! I'm glad you wasted so much time talking to those hamsters. Gave me a chance to get to have this weapon prepared." And he zaps him with this, and he says he's the only cyborg centaur. And Plaz completely loses control of his powers. He's like a bowl of wet spaghetti. And then Forklift tells him gives him his origin and backstory. Meanwhile, Plaz is saying to himself, "Oh no!" Says, "Why does every villain I face feel compelled to tell me his silly life story? Do they really think I'm interested?" It was playing fun with that trope. And here he is. He was in a carnival or a circus with trained hamsters doing tricks, and an accident happened. Some kind of weird thing happened, and he became physically attached to the forklift, which he can mentally control, and the accident also gave him super intelligence. So now he's Dr. Forklift, and he's come up with these mad schemes. Meanwhile, Plaz is still like spaghetti. And here come Woozy and company to the rescue. Of course, he doesn't know Plaz needs to be rescued, but he slips in, causes a lot of problems, lands right on Professor Forklift, tries to help Plaz up. But when he fell on the guy, he got zapped again with that ray gun, and it restored him to normal. Well, normal for Plaz. Forklift is he starts punching out Forklift, and then they release all the hamster brains. So it's Woozy and Plaz against all these hamster brains. But the little girl has freed all the hamsters, and they came in, and they're just going crazy, biting their own ankles and such. Until then, the Forklift, he goes to grab his ray gun again, and it turns out it was Plaz in disguise, and that's when Plaz takes him out, and they capture Dr. Forklift and get all the people returned to their own minds, except for Agent Foil. So then, well, they start taking off, and they kind of like him better as a hamster. Says, "Come on, guys, put me back." And that's the end. Oh, fun, silly stuff. Just fun and silly. It's too silly. It's too silly. I would have hated it as a teenager. I can appreciate it now. That's why I didn't buy these when I was much younger. I didn't appreciate the humor. I wanted my superheroes to be more on the serious side. But it was fun. Just good fun, and some great artwork by Ramona Fradon. Good storytelling. I really like this this image here of Plaz being like whirlpooled, and the goofy image of the villain. Good plain storytelling. She did a good job at depicting Plaz in his stretchable moments, more plastic moments. And the little girl looked kind of too creepy to me, though. There's just something creepy about that little girl, and I can't put my finger on it. When I was reading it, I was sure she was somehow attached to the villains. If you can get that. Yeah. She looked creepy too, but not as creepy as that little girl. Where's that page with when Woozy was talking to the little girl? Huh. I missed it. Oh well, I'm not gonna deal with it right now. She was just too creepy for words. She turned out to be a good guy, but I was sure somehow she was involved with the villain. because she just looked so creepy. And she's acted creepy. But I guess creepy is the way it goes. Okay, and that's what I've got for you now. I hope you enjoyed this silly little adventure with Plastic Man. Please like and share and subscribe. Share with your other comic book friends, humor friends, whatever. And feel free to leave a comment. And remember, comics are art.